When it comes to electric guitars, sometimes what seems like a real big problem can turn into an absolute blessing in disguise. Such a thing just happened recently, but not for us, for you. This is a Kahler Flyer. It was our budget model in the 80s, but still 100% made in America. This is a really great bridge. Now, is it as good as our hybrid or our professional? No, it's not. And that's why it was discontinued. But we recently found a cache of these things in the warehouse, somewhere around 90. So we decided to start selling them. And they were kind of trickling out, no big deal, until somebody discovered this. We had a customer buy a Flyer, and they were shocked to find out there was no lockout screw like there is on the hybrid and the professional. The lockout screw is a much newer thing than the 80s. As such, this person was pretty disappointed and said, I want my money back, but this is a closeout item and all sales are final. I had to go and mention that on social media, and these things started flying off the shelves. At the time of shooting this, we've got somewhere around 50 left, and they've been marked down to where we're just blowing them out. You know, we can't sell them for any lower. It's under $200 for a made in America Kahler bridge. So why would we blow this thing out instead of just keeping it in production? The number one reason are the saddles. You see, these old school saddles, they're not as good as the ones that we currently have. They are not adjustable as far as string spacing goes. Now, you can adjust your radius and you can adjust your intonation just like you can any other bridge. But our current models, you can also change your string spread. That's really handy. You can't do it with a Flyer. However, if you compare the Flyer to a standard Fender bridge, and this one came off of an American Strat. In fact, the one that we made the replica for Glenn Tipton Strat that we're going to be auctioning off for Glenn Tipton Parkinson's Foundation with help from our good buddy Glenn Fricker. If we look close at this bridge, we're going to be able to see something very quickly. The Fender bridge that came on this 6-hole American Fender has those two height adjustment screws that the string goes in between. There's absolutely nothing to keep the thing centered in there. It's just going to bounce in between the two. And that's just a completely and totally flat plate right there. So what can happen, especially if you have this thing set up wrong, is it can rock back and forth, and that compromises your tuning stability dramatically. Now, unlike the Fender bridge, you'll notice when I take that saddle off, we have 2 tracks that are right in there. And that's to keep those 2 screws in line so they won't wiggle wobble back and forth, thereby increasing your tuning stability. Is that as stable as our new saddles? No. But is it better than what comes on most modern day things? Absolutely. And this is discontinued 1985 tech we're talking about. One more thing that makes the Flyer a little less desirable, and this right here is the biggest deal to me. This arm doesn't have that in-between hole for a clutch. As such, it just flip-flops around until it gets to wherever it is that it's tight. If that's where you want it to sit, but then you want to move it out of the way like that, and then you want to move it back and use it, move it out of the way like that, maybe put it back like that and flutter it, which you can't flutter if you don't have a clutch. But then you move it back, and then you do this, and maybe you do some windmill stuff or whatever, and then you run out of thread. This will never stay where it is that you want it to, especially if you're constantly running up into it. You're just going to cut new threads. And that's why all of our remaining Flyers actually have a 3-hole cam in them. So you can do the flippy flop, but then you can also tighten this clutch down, and that thing ain't going to move unless you tell it to. And you can really make it tight. Now it's really going to stay put. And when you've got the clutch tight like this, you can flutter. And since this is kind of my jam for proving that a Kahler's got great tuning stability, we'll just do my little trick here where I play a G chord. And now I'll lay the guitar down, pick it up by the bridge, by the bar, flip it up like this, wiggle it back and forth. You hear it. I'm not being nice. See how that G chord's doing. Whoops. Now let's see how that G chord's doing. Unedited, so you know that I didn't doctor the damn thing. Now, something else I should let you in on is that with a little bit of modification, you can actually change these saddles to the new saddles. So now we've got 2 of the 3 major issues with the Flyer taken care of. Issue number 1 is that the saddles are different. Well, while they're different, not as good as our top of the line saddles, they're better than anybody else's out there. Thing number 2, no clutch. Well, all our remaining Flyers do have a clutch. So thing number 3, the lock-off screw. The main thing about the lock-off screw is that there's just absolutely no way to put one in there unless you're going to drill one yourself, then change out the cam and do a bunch of other stuff. And it's just not worth it. And more than likely, not going to work out. But it's really, really helpful as far as setting these things up to immobilize the bridge. That lock-off screw really helps with that. Well, we have a workaround. Thanks to a buddy of mine that called up and said, I got a Kahler that has been around so long, it's got the funk of 40,000 years on it. And he and I sat down and we discussed this entire thing and came up with this. That's right, screw. So this is a 440 screw, standard screw, and we're going to include one of these with every Flyer that we sell. You see how I'm screwing this down in here like this? This is going to help us intonate this bridge. And the way that it's going to do it is I'm just going to screw it in by hand until I feel it hit the bottom. Okay, so that's hitting the bottom. Now, what I want you guys to notice there is that the fine tuners are perpendicular to the body of the guitar. That's exactly perfect. This screw right here has now made it to where it's dive only. But if we want it to be extra fixed and extra stable and extra hardtail for intonating, what we're going to do is just kind of torque down on the load lever a bit so that whatever tuning we do up here as we're setting intonation and stuff like this, there's too much string tension for it to move too terribly much. Once we get it to the point where that's all good, what we'll do is we'll back this thing out and watch for the fine tuners to jump a little bit. Okay, so now all the tension is off of this screw. I can take it out by hand. Once I get the screw out, I can change it back to the original screw. There's the original screw right there. There are 3 of these things that hold the cage with the string hooks in. You only have to take out the center one, so you've got left and right, top and bottom, however you want to look at it, still doing the job, holding it in for this temporary amount of time. And then we can just put this thing back in here, screw her down tight, put our fine tuners back in. Once you have that middle screw back in there, what you do, put it up in the playing position, and then you'll just check with your tuner, because remember, you just set this thing up. It's properly intonated. It's all in tune, or it was before you loosen that screw up and everything. So then you'll just put this back in, hit an open note, and adjust until that one open note is in tune. Then check all the other strings. They should all be in tune as well. Put your fine tuners back in for those 2 strings. Retune the guitar yet once again, and it should be perfect. This is my personal Aria Pro Night Warrior. I wanted one of these things ever since 1985. They came with a Flyer. I work at Kahler, so I could have any Kahler bridge that I want on this thing. And I chose to leave a Flyer on because I feel that it's a really great bridge. And I like that it gives me the authenticity of the guitar. The only thing that I absolutely insisted on was swapping out the cam so that I had that clutch. Everything else is all original. And this is one of my favorite guitars to play. I absolutely love it. So if you've always wanted to get a Kahler, but you didn't want to fork out the $319, you can get one of these for $195. You can put on locking tuners, and as long as you've got a really good slippery nut, we recommend Graphtec, then you don't need to have a locking nut. You'll have way more travel than a traditional 2-point or a Fender or anything like that, 6-hole, what have you. Pretty good deal, I'd say. I know I love mine. I'm not giving that up for anything. So there you have it. The next 50 people who buy one of these flyers are going to get one hell of a smoking deal. Till next time, this has been Eddie for Kahler. See you next week.